so but nobody was here, so.
Seems like the right spot. It says all unvaccinated, right?
What's that?
All unvaccinated people?
I'm not vaccinated.
You're not.
Okay. Oh, hi, Miss. How are you? Good.
Oh.
It's nice and cool in here. I was happy to see that.
I'm always dying of heat, so it's nice.
Not this summer too much. It's humid though.
Ooh.
I was watching the South America, Copa America, South American soccer, and it was 70 degrees in Rio when they were playing, and they were sweating like crazy. It's only 70 degrees, but it was 90% humidity.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine?
Melissa, have you had any break?
No.
Oh.
Not yet.
When do you get time off?
I haven't put in for any time. Like, I get time off, but I haven't.
God. You got it.
Like, it's been so crazy, and I'm still, like, getting used to a lot of things, like, don't feel right, you know?
Right.
Hello. My name is Patrick Dibble. I'm the AV coordinator here in the district.
Hi, Patrick.
Yeah.
Hey, Patrick.
Hello, Allison. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
And then don't worry about me cleaning up later.
Spinning around in the
They should be, yeah. Oh, Jerry.
Doreen's gonna be late, so she said she's not gonna be here like 12:20.
the new New York State guys can
They're in town.
You know, I'm always here, but not
thanks for being on top of everything.
no problem.
As always.
Next week
We were out of town last week, and then the week before they did this ceramics thing.
when you go to the
Yeah.
the gym. So, no, I know, I'm gonna pull it to order and then.
Yeah, when it's getting up.
I would defer to Kevin.
Sit in to shove in a hard boiled egg. Last second.
How's your summer going so far?
Just like, I told Brianna, like every day. Well, my dog. 4 days and 5 days and 6. Oh, no, she's back.
So if you want
No,
to
that's
get
all I
enough
want.
now,
Yeah, like,
The only
president,
one of
then
my
we can
children,
just
my oldest
go
son,
on
went away to seasonal camp for 2 weeks, and he only did that when he was like 12, when he was 14, but the rest of my children
She is,
have
I
never
spoke to her, I
flown to
told her
college,
she's
right?
phenomenal.
I know, me and Joanna were like,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no,
we're
I'm
ready to
lost.
cry.
I'm gonna be,
Yeah.
you don't, like everyone keeps asking me, are you gonna be okay?
Yeah, I guess we'll have to
That's all.
wait.
Like, I know
We can,
mine never
we can
college,
swear,
never.
we have to take any
I don't
votes
want to. Oh my goodness.
right away, right? Well, they have to, yeah, you've got to swear them in, so I would swear the 2 of them in, and then we'll have to swear her.
Like, they're fine.
Let's swear the 2 of them in first,
Speakers aren't working.
and then
They are not.
nominate president, vice president.
Hello?
And then
You're on the internet, you're live. The mics are working, just the speaker is here.
Oh, okay.
So I just want you to know, just talk like always.
How are you?
Talk into the microphone, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. And when I give you time, you should be ready.
either one, whatever you want to do. So,
Of course.
Good afternoon, I'm calling the meeting to order. Today is Monday, July 12th, 2021, and this is the Hastings-on-Hudson Board of Education meeting. We are going to begin with the administration of oath for our newly elected trustees. I will start with Alexander Delpias. Please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Alexander Delpios,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of Board Trustee,
of the office of Board Trustee,
Hastings-on-Hudson Union Free School District, Town of Greenberg,
Town of Greenberg,
Westchester County, New York,
Westchester County, New York,
according to the best of
to my ability.
congratulations.
Yamoa Lang,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution and the Constitution of the State of New York,
in the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of Board Trustee,
of the Office of Board Trustee,
Hastings-on-Hudson Union Free School District,
Hastings-on-Hudson Union Free School District,
Town of Greenberg,
Town of Greenberg,
Westchester County, New York,
Westchester County, New York,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, both to Melissa Zemansky, our interim superintendent. I
I,
state your name,
Melissa Samansky,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that
I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of interim superintendent,
of interim superintendent,
Hastings-on-Hudson Union Free School District,
Hastings-on-Hudson Union Free School District,
Town of Greenberg,
Town of Greenberg,
Westchester County, New York,
Westchester County, New York,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. So now we will move on to the nomination and election of the president of the board.
Someone has to nominate someone.
I nominate. I second the nomination of Doug as board.
Okay, and do we have a vote? Can we take a vote?
Take a vote. I motion to vote.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Congratulations, Doug.
Thank you, Doug.
I state your name.
I, Doug Sondheim,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York.
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of President of the Board School District,
Hastings-on-Hudson Union Free School District,
Town of Greenberg,
Town of Greenberg,
Westchester County, New York,
Westchester, New York,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities. Okay. Do I have a nomination for the Vice President of the Board of Education?
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Melissa, do you have the oath?
Do you promise to do a good job when possible, sometimes off hours? I think
Often
it-
off hours.
All right.
We need an aspirational oath,
I think she's
not a
good.
realistic one.
Okay, Allison, so raise your right hand, please. I state your name,
I, Allison Andrus,
do solemnly
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support
the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Vice President
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of
District,
Hastings-on-Hudson Union Free School
New York, according to the best of my ability.
New York, according to the best of my ability.
I just went with,
Excuse me one moment. I was texting someone who said that the audio is not very clear online now.
online.
I can repeat everything, so it's like an echo
Is it being recorded at least, Patrick?
recorded.
Summer's good for your
person
sense of
said
humor.
the mics aren't working,
This seems to be.
and it is pausing. It was also pausing, I believe, the live event. But I think it's also to do with the, is there a way
Patrick,
to-
can you check that the recording is okay even if the live stream isn't?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Patrick- Fine then.
okay, okay. Okay. Resolution to appoint district clerk. Stuff. I guess there's nothing else we have to, Maureen, we just vote on this? And then the oath.
She takes.
Yeah, do you have that oath?
It's the same.
It's the same one.
Oh, okay, it's all the same oath, okay. Okay, Do we have to vote on this resolution, Maureen? I can't remember. Ting. Second?
Second.
Melissa,
A no vote on the. Okay, I state your name,
I, Melissa Del
solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I,
of the office of District Clerk,
Hastings-on-Hudson Union Free School District
Hastings-on-Hudson Union Free School District
of the Town of Greenberg, Westchester County, New York,
of the Town of Greenberg, Westchester County, New York,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
Thank you. Do we want to pause? And Melissa, do you want to administer the oath to Doreen?
Sorry, folks, I was on a work call.
Please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Doreen Bucher,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of Board Trustee,
of the Office of Board Trustee,
Hastings-on-Hudson Union Free School District,
Hastings-on-Hudson Union Free School District,
Town of Greenberg, Westchester County, New York,
Town of Greenberg, Westchester County, New York,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Okay, under B, we have to approve 42 different appointments for the year. Maureen, before we, is there anything you want to point out, or Melissa, about any of those appointments that are changed, or something we should know about?
Now, most of the appointments were consistent with who was appointed the year before.
Last year, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on items 2 through 43 and B, the consent agenda? Questions or comments? Or? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve item B, numbers 2 through 43 as a consent agenda?
So,
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Okay, have I missed anything in this meeting? No, okay. A couple commas. Treat them as pauses. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn the organizational meeting?
So moved.
A second?
second.
All in favor? Okay. Moving right along. Let me find the other meeting here. So that meeting closed.
That's fast.
Let me just open board docs. I somehow closed it. Okay. Okay, I want to call to order Hastings-on-Hudson Board of Education meeting, July 12th, 2021. Join the meeting. Okay. I will pass the meeting over to Melissa Szymanski for superintendent comments.
So, good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the district, I would like to extend an official welcome to all of our new Board of Education trustees. Welcome Doreen Bucher, Alexander Dalpiaz, and Dr. Damaris Lois Langyamoa. Welcome back to our returning Board of Education members, Allison Andrus, now serving as Vice President, Jeremy Gallen, Sylvia Robles, and Doug Suntime, now serving as President. Student Liaison Representative Sabine Hinkati will be joining us again this year, and she will be joined by Gus Renzen. So thank you to our students for their voices this year.
Thank you, Melissa. I also want to acknowledge we've got a guest at the table who is our superintendent, interim superintendent, who will be starting August 1. And we've got an official on that now, is that, okay?
Welcome.
We've gotten through all the educational process. For those at home who I think you can see behind the lectern, this is Dr. Bill McCursey. So welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Okay. That's it. Okay, I want to open up for public comment. Right now, there's an opportunity for anyone in the public to make a comment. Please keep your comments under 3 minutes. And this first public comment section is for items relating to what is on today's agenda. Any public comments? Is there anything to read, Melissa?
No, if anybody wants to make a public comment.
You can come here, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've got to relearn this now. You can walk up to the lectern and speak if anyone wants to make a public comment. Okay, so let's move on to business items. There are 18 items here. Does anybody have any questions, thoughts, concerns about these items?
I'd like to vote on items 11 and 13 separately.
And I'd like to note that item 13 also has an update that just came through this morning. So I'm happy to speak to that as well.
Has that been attached?
It's been attached, yes. It's in the PDF thread. And it outlines some of the details regarding the cross-contract for school communications.
This might be a good time if you want to talk about that
Sure.
a little bit.
So the cross-contract, as it originally went on, did not have the additional detail. And I actually walked in the middle of this story and had the opportunity to do some outreach this morning just to make sure that we had some additional detail to speak to that particular line item. So the cross-contract is calling for 25 hours per week, which it's 5 half-days for 40 weeks from September through June at 12 hours per week for 8 weeks in July and August. And so that is the daily rate for the communications is $500. That has not changed. The only difference is that this contract covers a full school year, and last year it did not. It did not cover the summer, and it was also prorated to reflect that 8 additional weeks were not covered. So that person started a bit later. The full year is 40 weeks. And at Dr. Henning Piedmont's request, formally and working with PNWCs prior to her departure, the half-time hours were added for 9 weeks during the summer, so that would cover half-time for that person. And that is Jason Platzner, and his role with us has been to report and write stories, take photos, produce an electronic newsletter for the community. Inform the community of important announcements. He creates the board brief. He supports the district clerk in sending out messages, connecting with the community, sends out the superintendent's community users for the district's constant contact account. As the communication specialist, also produces the press attend important events. And web a role that works remotely. There are to the list who's also included in the cross contract may produce up to 2 podcasts desired by the superintendent of schools. And so that's outlined here along with, so you're seeing in the publicity line, the cost would be a rate of $500 for 158.82 days at a cost of $79,410. The web hosting, design and management, $500 at 45 days for $22,500. This is an estimated expenditure, so we would not be billed for if we're below that amount. And that's a total of $101,910. So I just wanted to give a little detail about that.
Melissa, I just want to note that the podcast is not reflected in here, so if that was something we considered to do, we would have to sign a different contract for that. And then also, it is consistent with our budget document this year. We did budget these amounts for that. So we did, I don't know if, I mean, it was a while
It was
ago, but we
budgeted
did
for.
actually, just to confirm, actually, budget line for this particular item was a little bit higher than this estimate.
And Maureen, can you just give us the effective rate with our discount from BOCES?
So we're going to receive back approximately, after the administration charge that they also are allowed to bill us, we'll receive back about 40% of this expenditure. So it will be approximately $60,000 to $65,000 a year cost to the district. So when we secure services through BOCES, depending on the nature of that service, we're entitled to aid back. It comes back the following year, and that helps us save money. So with this particular expenditure, we'll receive back about $40,000-$50,000 next year.
Can I just ask, that
Sure.
the reimbursement, that comes from state funds?
Correct.
Or? Okay.
But I think the state incentivizes districts to use BOCES as it's a shared service, so
Sure.
they really want us to kind of,
Right,
and
they want
that's
to
why you get
maintain
that.
it with
Yeah,
enough bandwidth.
exactly. So, but the way it rolls is that you pay 1 year and you receive the aid back the next year.
Good tax return.
Exactly.
Just a tangential question. The company who redesigned the website for us, I know they were still fixing things along the way as we gave them feedback. Are we now finished with their services and this takes over any changes we might need to the web, or how does that? Do we
So
still
my
use them?
understanding into it further is that we have a cost that's associated with the site, the platform for hosting, and that this is, this specifically, the cross-contract is for working with Chris Yerkes, who's our webmaster, to be able to provide updates to that in
I
terms
see.
of a content space.
But the person who did the work previously was also from Putnam Northern BOCES as
Part
well.
of the
Yeah,
same.
Part of the
It was,
Yep.
it's almost
Okay.
like Chris is the new person in that role.
I see.
Does this look similar to last year's items, just without the publicity item? Did we pay for webmastering?
Yes.
We do.
And this, so the 79,000 would be our first time seeing it here, even though we brought that person on
No, so
mid-year, I believe, or?
We did approve a contract with them last year. It just would have been a little bit less because it didn't start
Prorate.
until, I forget.
It was 8 weeks difference,
Yeah.
plus we didn't have the halftime summer
Right.
added.
Thank you for getting that on Monday morning, late notice.
No problem.
And Jason also won an award for his work for us,
He did.
right? So he's
He
been
did.
really impressive, I think, in highlighting what's the good stuff going on in the district in a very readable way. So that's been a terrific addition. Thank you.
I don't know if this is when we would talk about the content of the daily emails, or is there a way to streamline things? I've heard a lot from parents that the daily emails are confusing, and, is that something we can talk to him about, making it better? for
Yeah,
everybody?
I'm a huge fan of always making everything better, so I think that would be a point that we can have some discussions around, information from the community around what would be helpful, because I've heard mixed things. Some people love having the daily, and other people think it's a lot of information. So I think to the extent that we can have some additional information and then channel that information to make sure that we're making some revisions that are helpful to the community, that would be great.
Maybe, like you could think about for the summer, I know that we're talking about the summer, like moving to a weekly announcement, not, people's inboxes are inundated, and I heard from a lot of people, really, it's summer and we're still getting these, so, how can we make it better for our community?
Doug, what sort of committee would maybe cover aspects of that planning and thinking about if the board wanted input on that?
We haven't ever had a committee for that. There've been board members that have
Fall under any
engaged.
existing committee,
Could it be I know it's not really technology, I know it's not, but
I mean, like, if we
occasionally
decide we
websites
want a
could-
communication committee, we can create a communication committee. You know, I think
but if we didn't want a new committee, if we wanted to know where to direct some focus on it, not in a public meeting where we would just gather our consensus on it.
I mean, I think we should talk as a board. We can do it now, we can do it whenever.
I can throw out a very simple idea. You know, working in software, oftentimes you have to, you know, code is voluminous, you don't visit parts of it for months or years, and all you ever want to know is what's changed, what's the delta. And so when you're dealing with reams of code, there's a delta function where you can sort it and you can just see what has changed. And I think one of the weak points of the Hastings Daily is that there's no organization for what is new. So you're left in that position of having to sort of go through everything. And I think that's probably what people don't like about it. They want to be able to open it and make that initial assessment, do I need to pay attention to this or not? If nothing has changed, no. If only this thing has changed, it's one more step. So just to throw one simple idea out there, that's what I would do.
Yeah, I would, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Dinesh, please.
I want to say that probably, just come back to what Jeremy was saying, getting a committee that would sort of work. I intended to ask for us to do this, but we need to probably have a kind of ad hoc committee. It doesn't have to be a permanent one that would work on community input. Because sometimes someone might not have seen even the supposedly old information, right? So there is going to be that what is old and what is new, but at least organizing it as old and new also is a good way.
Yeah.
And I think that having an ad hoc committee that would work on community inputs in an equitable way, so that it's not just what our ears, like you said, I know people that totally love Hastings Daily because it's like, it's similar to the way Columbia University have their dashboard. It's just link, and just glance through it, and that's about it. And others don't really like it that way. So I think creating an ad hoc committee that would work on it would be a good way, and then they can sort of present it to the board. And another ad hoc committee that sort of takes in community input and seeks community input, because sometimes it's not every voice that is actually being heard in our board deliberation. So that's something.
I know in different districts, the way they do it is they have a community engagement district, and they've had that for a long-standing time.
Excellent.
And so they have different mechanisms by which it's not
Correct.
just modes of communication, but actually, kind of
Seeking
parent engagement,
out
all those different things.
surveys.
And so
Yep.
it probably be worthwhile if that was something that we were realistically interested in pursuing, to go to those, local districts who've been doing, like, I know Greenberg has had it, like, they're the ones who are in charge of also, like, the like new people come to the district, whether it's like welcoming committees, all those types of things. And so that might be something we want to give some thought to figure out how to get it off the ground. But I don't know if it's logistically how you do that, if it's an informal one, because we also want to build in some accountability. Because even the committees we
Correct.
already do have, it's sometimes difficult, just given everybody's demanding schedule, to get people to get to those meetings. So my only concern would be if this is something that's kind of off the books, then it wouldn't be people wouldn't feel as much of a pressure to actually
Correct.
populate it and show up and
Correct.
and put in
Report
the time.
back.
Yeah, I think making it an ad hoc committee and also making sure that we have sort of representation and people can email their input, like that flexibility is necessary, and not making it taxing. So for example, if there's something that we really want to hear from the community, sort of just resorting to Facebook or just loud, or some people have a lot to say and it's pretty silent, but it doesn't get to the board.
Right.
So that committee may be a way to seek out all the different opinions that may be out there for us to sort of have when we are doing our deliberation. So it's really more informal, like you said, yeah.
I know Lauren, the outgoing president for the board, really was interested in following what some other school districts did as well, in terms of answering questions that come up regularly for community members, so that they knew, here's a place to go where the board has responded to the following. and here's the link. And so, as well as knowing what's new, deciding when those dailies go out, but that might be another resource for people, because I think often they don't know where to find that information. But for the board, there's a lot coming in, so one place that they can go to get those answers would be helpful.
Yeah. Well, I think in the short term, one potential easy fix in the next couple of weeks is to just work with Jason, and I can do that, to see if we can either establish some sort of chronology or color coding of new links, and then we'll go from there.
So can I just quickly say this? So what I'm hearing is, I think 3 separate things, or 2 separate things. I'm hearing a place where people need information and where they can go to, and then which will closely be related to what Jason is doing. And then the other one that I was speaking to was where community can lend their voices to situations that otherwise they cannot show up here.
Input.
Inputs, yeah, an input sort of committee that to be, this ad hoc committee will involve community members, but we are intentionally making sure that it's an equitable representation. And then they can, my neighbor said this, and all of it can be put in there before they can present it to the board. They don't make the decision. It's more of gathering that input and making it available to the board to deliberate on. So that's like a separate one from the information.
No, I get that. I get it.
third one? You said there was a third one?
Oh, did I say it? Oh, the third one was Sylvia's idea about the welcoming thing.
Oh, the community, yeah, I know that's one aspect where they,
Yeah.
they basically have like a welcome wagon, whether you're like a teacher or superintendent, whatever it is, even new families, like that.
So we can talk about this at our board retreat as well, as we talk about committee. I think the other side is people internally work, right? That I think Jason's done a great job. We've got money in the budget for him. But as that, what we want to do changes, shifts, moves, we have some flexibility in that budget, right? We can stop the use of BOCES. We're not throughout the year. I've long said that it's not a content creation challenge we have, it's a UI challenge, it's a UE challenge. And, this isn't blaming anyone. I don't think anyone's ever owned, probably across all of these. That's really interesting. And that's, I think, the challenge, and I think as board members, put up for at least 6 years to crack for a variety of people, maybe focused on it, and maybe who have expertise in that world. We could do some, let's talk about that, but that might be a good opportunity. Being on that, certainly reach out if you're interested. Jeremy.
Yeah, so I'm willing to vote on 13 and number 11. That was the architects. Looks like we're adding $50,000 to a fixed rate fee. Description said that there were 2 main reasons. One was that New York State took a little bit of time on a review, which to me seems possible always when you bid a contract. The second one talked about there being more involved than we expected with either auditorium reviews. So that one concerns me, and I'd like to pull it out for a separate vote or more details.
Maureen, can you
Yeah,
just give them
so
one, too?
is those 2 items. So, in terms of the delay. So obviously, as everyone knows, this particular hillside addition, which they were mostly involved in, there was a significant delay due to COVID in receiving our building permit. And also during the time, a few things happened. Had such a lengthy delay in the construction, we needed to really go back and not necessarily redesign the entire thing, but we were looking for a few things. We were trying to get back to the original scope of our bond. So that required the design architects, when we made that decision to pull back some of the money from the capital reserve, it required them to do additional work for the district in redesigning some of the work to get the bond scope back down for that particular project. In addition, the escalation of costs during that time also required them, again, at many different times to kind of go in and redesign some of the work to get us, consistently back into a budget. And although there is a cost in doing that, we knew, we really understood that it was more important for us to kind of retain as much as the capital reserve, which right now we're still able to retain our entire capital reserve without touching it for this scope of work. The delays at the state also just kind of required different things to be updated again, because the ordering of furniture and cabinetry and things that are dictated by state contracts, once that year expired, we had to go back and do that work again, and they were included in doing that. But they were always included in various parts of the work. It was a requirement that they had to do additional services for us. In addition to that, we have had them, I would say, more involved than we initially thought they would be in the actual construction phase of the project. What I will say about that is because we're in a very tight time frame, having them at the table, having them on site more often, I believe is better for us in terms of staying on our very tight time schedule to ensure that things are done. They've also been helpful in the field in solving issues that could potentially turn into a change order. So I think that latter part, possibly we should have considered in the original contract, having them a bit more involved than we initially thought they would need to be. But much of it had to do with the redesign of those projects. So that being said, I think it's money that's necessary to spend, and I think the value they bring to being part of the construction oversight is really invaluable at this point.
Maureen, can I just ask something that you might have addressed already?
Sure.
But how is the bidding and selection done?
Sure.
When sort of getting these contractors to do work? I'm just
Are you
curious.
talking about just the actual contractors
Yes,
themselves?
yeah.
Okay, so we're required by New York State to bid out all of our work over a certain threshold. So we put out a public bid, and in those bid documents, there is some specification, meaning most of the contractors would be required to have demonstrated they've done a certain amount of this type of schoolwork, and there's some specifications about these things they need to have in order to even be considered a viable bidder. They also need to be able to float a job such as this. So, the bids go out to the public, and we did have quite a few, and I'll speak about Hillside in particular. We had quite a few contractors that were interested. We're required to split up. That project is broken up to 5 primes, so we have 5 different contractors working on Hillside currently. You have a general contractor, a plumbing and HVAC, a site contractor, an electrical contractor. Anything that exceeds $1.5 million threshold on a particular budget, we have to break it up. So we have 5 prime contracts. And when they do come in and they present their bids, first we consider that we have to award to the lowest bidder unless there's a reason where their bid isn't complete. Like either they're missing information or we find out something negative about the contractor that we can dismiss their bid. And they go through multiple interviews, and those interviews are conducted by our construction manager, all of our architects and engineers. In order, they go through a bid scope review and, go through the documents, page turn. Actually, we had one this morning on another project, and to ensure that what they were bidding on was in fact accurate to the documents, and there was nothing missing. And their bids are also very detailed, so they to ensure that there's nothing missing in that project. So that's the way the actual work, and that's even with some smaller scope of work we do in the district, like even the sidewalk outside we're required to do. We have a big contractor for that, so we can't just award or give work to somebody once it exceeds a certain dollar amount in the district. So
Thanks.
you're welcome.
Maureen, since some of this money seems to be caused by COVID,
Yeah.
could we use the we're getting what, $1.5 million or plus or minus from the state. Could we pay for this using some of that money?
You know, I mean, that's actually a really good idea, and it is possible, and I think right now we have, when we submitted the application, we've put a large amount of, we've earmarked a certain amount for, you know, expenses that we incurred during COVID, so that's something I could follow up on for sure. Because it definitely, a lot of the delays, particularly on this project, were costly for us, you know, for a number of reasons. You know, just even in terms of the cost of materials, we're all seeing some escalation
God,
in the
right.
construction numbers. So, and that was why it was also necessary for them to redesign. So, you know, had that not been delayed, that would not maybe have been necessary.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
No, I think that's a good
Triton as
idea.
well.
Yeah, no, I think it's actually an excellent idea, and as I was speaking to Alyssa earlier, we're not alone in this, where a lot of districts similar to ours are needing to extend some of their professional service contracts because of the delays in the work, or the need to revisit some of the designs for cost purposes, so I will definitely look into that, thank you.
It relates to the architect specifically. It says, you know, in lieu of the hourly arrangement and mutually agreed. Are we talking about work that was already performed? Is this sort of stuff they've done hoping that we would, you know, they were in discussions? Is there an hourly number for the past versus the future? And
Well, what was occurring is I think they have a certain amount of hours, right, that they've dedicated toward this work, and they probably feel like they've spent more of that time than they initially thought they would have up to this certain point. So I guess, to your point, we never made them a promise. They did, you know, come to the district and express that they've now, you know, looking at the amount of hours that they've had to spend on it, they had some concern about being able to, you know, provide the same level of service, you know, until the project was done. And that's why we started, again, we engaged with our attorneys, was the person who negotiated that extension.
But
with
isn't
them.
that just the challenge whenever you do a fixed rate
Yes.
bid? You know, they did a fixed rate bid, they planned for a certain number of hours, and on some of their projects, they might use fewer hours, on some of their projects, they might use more hours. So if this is the past, it seems like they're coming to us as we continue to work with them and you have a strong relationship. You know, I have concerns about this when you give out a fixed rate bid and it happens to be more work or more hours. That's where they're at, and so we have an hourly built into the contract. Do you know why they never wanted to file their hourly? Do you feel like it's because it's difficult to say what was, I mean, it's got to be additional work to qualify for their hourly. So
Maybe
they're
nobody-
choosing not to give us the hourly breakdown
I
as
mean, I
it.
could ask them to provide it as we, you know, pay the additional services fee, but I believe that, I mean, I don't know why they went that route, because again, I did have our attorney kind of negotiate the extension
This
with them.
number has been,
Yeah.
yeah, mutually agreed, okay.
Right.
Well, just to give, and this doesn't change anything, but just to give history on PBDW, so Ray Dovell is the principal of PBDW. He's a Hastings resident. His kids went through the district. The lead architect under him on the contract, she went through Hastings, and they have been tremendous kind of partners giving, I mean, I can't say for sure, but I'm assuming ghosting a fair amount of hours during this process. That's hard to ever qualify that, so quantify that exactly, but their history, when we originally went out to bid for the design, the design came back and from another architect, and it was generally not well liked in the district. We then went out to a different set of architects, and we went with, I think, what was it, Maureen, like 5 architects or so came in?
Yeah, something like that.
PBDW didn't really ever do districts like ours or schools like ours. They were a high-end architect from New York City, and, you know, Ray he lives right behind Hillside. He had a deep love for the district. He agreed to pitch business and give us a pretty good rate on the design fees that he would not likely have given to another school district. So none of that to say that's how we vote here, but I just think it's worth giving Ray about what it is and who he's been in this process, and my experience. Maureen has a much more detailed data in PBDW is that they have bent over backwards to provide us with a very high-end design for what we've paid for the context. I don't know if I qualified that properly or not.
No, I think you did. No. Architects that were the district architects that a little bit more involved in the construction drawings than initially they thought, again, because it was like a new kind of partnership and arrangement. There's the value of they've put in is definitely obvious in terms of, I think the design architect would have really walked away after the design was presented, but they review all the construction documents, where all they talk about is where the waste and how things are interconnected. So I think as the process went on, and again, as Doug said, it was not that they do a lot of schoolwork, but primarily in New York City, not so much here where you deal with a different authority in terms of approval through New York State Education Department. So the value of the partnership with H2M was good for them, but I also think that they've been more heavily involved. Really, I think the fee for that portion of the work was about $1,000, and their hours are exceeding that quite a bit.
Maureen, I would just quickly add, I don't think in the future, the way that there is a clear kind of rubric, the way that we could put sort of, well, when we compare with this architect.
Oh, no, we did do that when we
Okay.
selected them. Oh, so that's what Doug meant when we initially selected them. It was actually, the committee was myself, but it was all community members that were
Okay.
sat on it.
Got it.
And one previous board member, I think, or was it you two, Doug? One previous board member, the full board, the recommendation was for him to do it.
Got it. Who they are.
Oh, yeah, so Doug was just giving a little bit, but we actually did go, they went through the process.
This is a very long process.
It was a very long process. I think that, but back from when they
I'm glad I wasn't
initially
part of it.
signed the contract, things have changed a bit. And
Got it.
that's what we're voting,
Got it.
what you'd be voting on is the modification to what they initially submitted to us 3 years, is it 3 years ago or 4 years ago?
You know I'm in a learning process, right?
No, it is, I'm sorry. And I
That's
feel
okay,
like when you asked before, I was wondering if you meant the architect piece, but I went off on the contract.
Maureen, thank you for the details. Doug, thank you for the details. I'm willing to vote on everything in a 1 through 99 type vote.
I just have one more question for Maureen.
Sure.
Regarding the additional $51,166.66, did they give you a reason for why that amount? I mean, is there a breakdown for why it's that random amount?
Yeah, I think what they went through and tried to capture all the hours, additional hours that they were putting on, and then what they believe commitment will be going forward. We do have anticipated end date of the end of March, and that includes that and any closeout that's necessary. So they have been coming, they've committed, and they will be coming to all the meetings. They're on site quite a bit, and during different phases of construction, in particular, as they get into the building, they'll be on site more to assist in that. So there was a breakdown provided, and it was based upon like a discounted hourly rate, I believe. So, and I think in fairness to Ray, although Ray's a prime there, he does work with other partners, and some of this was necessitated by, the hours that they were putting onto this project and the other architects that were involved. So.
And is there a way to write into the contract that, we're agreeing to this in good faith, we think they're doing a great job, we appreciate all the extra hours, but this is it?
Yeah,
Like,
I'll make sure.
Don't come to us in November and
No,
ask
I
for
think that's what.
$50,000
No,
more.
and I
Well,
think.
they have the hourly.
Yeah,
If they
yeah.
ever needed to go additional.
I think that was like, and the reason actually that was recommended was by our attorney, which was in the which I don't even want to go there, if there was any type of further delays or anything that, they kind of put that in there so that we wouldn't have to do it. I think, to her point, maybe that would have been better to be put in the initial contract, then we would have had a little more flexibility. So,
Thanks, Maureen.
you're welcome.
Does anyone want to pull out any items to vote 1 through 18, or is everyone okay voting 1 through 18? Anyone? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve business items 3A, 1 through 18?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. I should have asked before we started, were the new board members able to get into board docs, or? Okay.
I'm looking
Okay,
at it
good.
right now.
Okay,
I mean,
I just
I looked at it, but I'm following.
I just want to make sure,
Thank you.
it just occurred to me that
Melissa
maybe
did a
these,
good job with that.
Takes about 7 clicks to get there, but that's part of the new communication, maybe.
I think board docs could use a UI person, quite frankly. And good luck trying to access it on a mobile device.
Oh, yeah. Then I found out. I printed it.
Well, then you can't get out.
I read that.
Just don't give it
I don't know,
easy.
it's this captive audience thing. I don't know how they do it, because they're like, no, we're not going to, 2001 UI works for us. Okay, 3B, placements for services CSE and CPSE. New board members, just to clarify what this is, these are placements for students for services, CSE and CPSE. You'll see them obviously designated by their number, not their names. A question I know that has been asked many times in years past is, how do I approve these things that I don't know about and I don't know any specifics about? And I've never gotten a great answer on that. Maureen, I don't know, it's just kind of the nature of approving this work. Is that
Yeah.
correct? And
Yeah,
Melissa
and
would be able to.
sure, CSE, Committee on Special Education, and CPSE, Preschool Education, Special Education, there is a committee process, and that is also legally sanctioned, and determinations are made by committee that are very specific to students' individualized education plans. And so while these need to certainly be voted upon, it is confidential content, and it is under jurisdiction of other, legal committee representation.
So these are the Laura Sullivan kind of group?
Correct.
We get to say yes.
That's it.
Do I have a motion to approve placements under 3B?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay.
I just want to motion, I would say a comment. I understand the nature of the IEP process, but also I think, is there a way, I think this is under the superintendents, but is there a way that that approval process somehow, I'm not sure how to put this, but I've had individuals not happy with what their kids are being asked to, services being taken away, and it's more or less like they are unhappy about it. And I'm not sure how that process can be handled, right? Because this is just too late for it to be yes or no, which means it's affecting others that may not be part of that equation. So I'm just wondering, probably that's more to the level of yeah.
So I can speak to that. So there is, at any point in time, a parent can request a program review.
Correct.
And that would reconvene the Committee on Special Education or the Committee on Preschool Special Education. And in terms of what's determined at those meetings, there are certain guiding principles that are also under the legal umbrella. So you want to make sure that constantly being taken into account is least restrictive environment, and also the entitlement for free, appropriate public school education, which doesn't necessarily translate to certain preferences for services or not, but again, that would happen through the committee decision-making process.
Got it, thank you.
Does anyone have any questions or comments under 4A or B, appointments and resignations? Do I have a motion to approve items 4A and B, appointments and resignations?
So moved.
A second? All in favor? Okay.
Shout out to Mr. Hanlon, that we're sorry to see him go and wish him the best. He was a great addition for the time we had him. Sorry to lose him.
Any questions on the minutes from last meeting? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the June 21 meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Time for second public comment. I guess we've been making these 2 minutes, right? I haven't been present for a while, so. These have been 2 minutes for anyone in the community who wants to speak on topics on this agenda or other agendas. Okay. Any comments from the Board of Education?
Those would be comments on today's business, or?
Today's business, anything, really, thoughts, anything you want to share, it's, your opportunity to.
I had just one question. When I was looking over the gear and the ESSER funds that were set aside for instructional support, and there was one line item in the revenue document that we voted on today, where under personnel, there was $40,000 pulled out of it and moved over to pay for some aspect of construction. And I'm familiar, I've watched all the 101, budgeting 101 videos and whatnot, and I'm familiar with that money gets moved around occasionally. But the question I have is, so with the ESSER and the gear funds set aside for direct instruction adds up to about $560,000. But because we have the ability to move funds around, and as an example today, where it was taken out of personnel and moved over to construction, that the movement's sort of free-ranging, right? So when we're talking about the $560,000 of spending, is there a difference between allocating it and how it's actually going to get used? So in the sense, you see what I'm saying? There's a distinction between we've set aside the money for it, but and we don't have to know today, but it would be nice to know functionally what that's actually going to turn into, because it's a large number. So I was just curious about it.
You want to speak to it?
Well, first, I just want, being it's like a federal fund, we would not be able to shift that to pay for something
Oh, okay.
else. So the money as, how it's going to be actually diced up, it has to be for that particular purpose. So, and it runs through a different fund, not our normal operating fund. It's a grant, so it comes through a federal fund.
Okay.
So the rules around that are a bit different. And Melissa, I guess you can speak to.
Yeah, and as a reminder, we have the 2 funds that we're working with. So one was the American Rescue Plan Act funds, and that's the amount of $257,000. And then there's a second bucket, so to speak, which it also has the gear ESSER component, but that is under CRRSA. And so one of the things so the first one, the ARP funds, prior to the end of the school year, that was the one that we engaged in the consultation and collaboration process around. But I did want to add that as the allocation, the plan for the allocation of the other bucket was submitted for consideration, we also took into account any of the consultation and collaboration that occurred with the ARP funding, to be able to think about, although there isn't that process that's required for that second bucket, but we did take that into account in terms of the allocations of how we wanted to do that. So there's some flexibility in terms of broad categories of how certain things are used, and then there's some more accountability in terms of specifically within each of those categories what things can go to. But beyond that, once we have allocated a different amount in different areas, we would actually have to do a resubmission process.
Okay,
refile.
it's federal money,
they're
okay.
they do scrutinize that also at the state level. And we're very careful to stay within whatever it is that we said that we're allocating for.
All right, just curious. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
Okay, any other board comments? Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting to move into an executive session for the purposes of discussing second?